Alright, and we're back. So we're going to jump to a little bit part of the different project. Since I'm keeping this car as an SMG wagon, it means I have to retrofit all the SMG wiring, which isn't too bad. That's why I went ahead and took all the carpet out here, just so I can get down to the bare wiring. The whole dash is out. It'll make it a lot easier to route my factory wiring, which I pulled from the convertible body harness, all the way down to the individual pins and the connectors. So I'll be able to, there won't be any splicing or butt connectors. It'll all just get plugged in like it's supposed to based on the wiring pinout I get from the BMW TIS. So for the next part though, there is one piece you have to retrofit that's unique to the SMG cars. It is the longitudinal acceleration sensor. So these sensors are used not only in SMGs, but they're also used in pre-facelift non-Ms as part of the DSC sensor, and it's usually located on under the dash on the A-pillar side, tucked up there. And they're the same part number, so that's where I got this from. Same part number, same sensor. And on the SMG M3 cars, they repurposed this sensor, and it sits, instead of this way, like it sits on the A-pillar underneath, it sits this way, going to the front of the car. And this is meant to measure the longitudinal acceleration of the car going backwards or forwards, so that the SMG system knows how to handle clutch pressure actuation and rollback when you're on a hill and things like that. So that's a pretty neat little sensor here and use of it. And basically on the SMG car M3s and 6MT M3s, their bodies come under the passenger side with two little studs sticking off here. So here you see I've already marked two spots, and that's where there will be studs there on a SMG car and a 6MT car. I'm not that fortunate, I didn't get those, so what I'm gonna have to do is drill those out, and then I'm gonna use riv nuts. I got a riv nut, a riv nut gun that I bought, and that's gonna allow me to put in riv nut threaded inserts so that I can bolt this in place. And basically it's gonna sit kind of like that. And then there's a plug that comes off of here, and it goes to the body harness over here and goes up to the behind the dash and out to the SMG DME connector under the hood. So I'll get that put in. And then here's the riv nut gun that I ordered. It was like $76 on Amazon. Let's see if we can. I bought this kit. There was a cheaper $39 one on Amazon, but it didn't have a wide of range of threaded inserts. This one goes all the way from M3 all the way up, you know, to M12, and then it has standard sizes: 3/8, 16, 1/4, 20. So it's got a much wider range if I want to use this in the future. And here's the gun right here. I need to pull it out. And they give you some inserts to use out of the gate. For me, this will be perfect because I only need two. But for other people using this, they probably need a lot more. So once they figure out which one works for their application, then they'd probably buy like a couple bags of these things depending on how many they need. So I'm excited to use this because this is going to be a much cleaner, better solution than using like self-tapping screws, which I could have done. I could have just used some self-tapping screws and called it a day, but I really wanted it to be secure like it is in the OEM car. So yeah, and I wanted it a cleaner job. You know, I don't really want to try to do a hack job or anything like that. So, and I can always use this tool for future jobs as well. So anyways, I'll come back once I get some holes drilled and I get the riv nuts inserted, and we can see how that looks. All right, thanks. All right, so we're back on the riv nut installation. Right now I have measured and drilled the holes for the riv nuts. Here's one of the riv nuts here, and basically I used I drilled a pilot hole first. Then once I used the unibit, and then just kept stepping the size up until, you know, I would drill the hole, it wouldn't fit, go to the next size up, and then finally on the third size it went in. So it goes in, it has very little play, and that way it'll pull tight when I use the tool. So I have got the tool ready now. and I'm going to try doing my first one. And I can't put the camera down, so I will come right back. Alright, so we're back. Had to make some space and move that fuse box out of the way so I can put that in there at a straight angle, not cockeyed. So I've gotten the first riv nut in, and I went through my bolts bin, which is over here. Any car I've ever parted out, I have 2 bins here. They're not organized. I just throw them in there and I just go hunting. And I found M10 size bolts, the 10mm, and the thread pitch happens to work with those M6 inserts. So we're gonna come over here, and with this, according to the instructions, if you're using anything below an M8 insert, you need to use a chart to measure the depth of the riv nut, and you do that by opening up the handles and then twisting this, and then there's a gauge right here, and according to the chart and the length, height, depth measurement chart, it calculates I need 3.1 millimeters, and that's just to make sure that you don't blow out the hole when you clamp down on the handlebars, because if you don't set the depth right on a small insert, you'll pull right through the sheet metal, and you don't want that. I'm sure you could probably get away with just hand feeling it or whatever. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to try, see if I can set this up. Let's see, can you see right here? Yeah, good. So let's see if we can do this. We'll take the riv nut and we'll thread it on. Let me set my depth again. All right, so I got my depth set, and I'm going to try putting in straight. All right, see if it shakes around. All right, remove the tool. All right, tool has been removed. Got my bolts here. See if they thread in, which they do. Not loose. All right, now we could take my sensor, make sure I got everything lined up right. See if I can get my 10mm. Tighten that on there. Doesn't need to be super tight. All right, and that's it. We're installed. So, take a look here. We have one SMG longitudinal acceleration sensor installed, and let me see if I got one second here. See if I can find my bubble alignment tool. Make sure that we're at between Alright, good. We're under 1 degree, which is fine. And it matches here, 0.6, 0.8. So we're good. So I'm at the same horizontal mounting as the car. Not sure if that really matters, but I wanted to make sure to get that done. This only measures movement forward, not side to side. So I don't know if that really matters or not, but I went ahead and did it. And then I tried to get it close to, I got some pictures of somebody else's car that has it installed, and I looked at their pictures and saw the distance of how this hole is right under this hole, and then the distance between this hole and the mounting flange, and then this one right here. So I would call that a win. So now we'll move on to the next project, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, we are back. It is another night. Little update is I'm trying to get some of this wiring done for SMG, just starting off with the SMG stuff. Earlier in one of the previous videos or clips, I had showed how I had pulled all of the SMG specific wiring from the M3 convertible harness, and I mapped out everything. I mean, I didn't show how to do it, but like I showed the end result, which were the looms of wires. And so I have this box put together of all the wiring that I pulled out from the M3 that I want to retrofit. And so SMG is the first thing I'm starting with. So the first thing I did was I needed to get rid of the factory automatic transmission body harness blue connector. And I went ahead and depinned that and got rid of the wiring for that from the body harness of this car, just because it's cleaner that way. And then I went ahead and mounted the SMG selector lever in place so that I know where all my connectors are. So this is the connector for the shifting speed button that goes on the trim panel, and then this is the main selector level harness right here, and then you have the shift lock 2-pin connector right here, and it's wired differently than it is on a standard automatic transmission. Same wire connector, but the wires are routed differently and they're pinned in a different fashion. So I've already got this. This was pretty easy. This was it's got 2 wires right here that go all the way up to the DME box, and then you have 2 wires here, 3 wires, 2 ground and 1 illumination wire. And there's an actual, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there are bus bar connections right here. There's an illumination bus bar. There was 1 spot open for that, so I used that. And then there's a ground one right here. I was able to use that one. There was 2 open on there, and I used those 2. And so these 2 wires right here, I'm going to route through the standard body harness. But before I do that, I'm also going to go through the wires here that I need to go to the DME as well, the SMG DME. So it's a bundle of wires. If you can see here, I'm going to do a pullback. There's a lot of wires. I have all of them mapped out on my phone. You can see here. See here. All right. Not sure if you see it, but I just have this thing right here with all of my wire traces done. Comes in real helpful. And then, so once I got all of these mapped out where I want to go, I'm using this wire loom right here, this fabric, it's like almost like a Chinese death trap type of material where it expands to make bigger so you can get the wires through. So I got a whole thing of that, so I'm making my own harness just to make it easier, because it's easier to use this than it is to wrap the whole thing in electrical tape to make it cleaner. So yeah, so I'm gonna get started finishing. I'm gonna try to finish this up, and then I will come back with an update with how the wires are routed. All right, thanks. All right, a few hours later, this is the progress of what we got. I tried to create some decent looking, cleanish wire loom. Even though it'll never be seen, it's just mainly to help my OCD a little bit with routing these wires instead of just having loose wires bundled around. So what we have here, this is the SMG body harness connector that stays in the car. And as you can see, I've gotten all the wires plugged back in, pin for pin, like they're supposed to according to my wire chart. We have this bundle of wire right here. These wires go to that plug right there, the shift selector main harness. Then you got these little wires right here. This loose brown wire right here, that goes to the EWS module. And then we have these two yellow wires, yellow black, yellow white. Those are actually for the shift paddles that go to the clock spring. So that goes all the way here. I routed it up through the steering column harness area. And then here it is hanging right there, ready to plug in to the clock spring. Then we have this bundle of wire right here. These guys right here. And let's see if we can set this over here. This wire loom right here. This is for the, longitudinal acceleration sensor. That's the sensor that I installed right there on earlier with the two riv nuts. The SMG system needs to know that so that it knows if the car is lurching forward or backwards, so it knows when to engage the clutch on a hill. So this is the plug right here. So this plug, and then this one right here. This is the last few wires that specifically go to the fuse box area. So I have them taped up right now so that I can route them. So I'm going to route this and the longitudinal sensor bundle wires because they all go to this side. All that is going to get routed through here into that, through that little pass through right there. And then the fuse box ones will branch off to the fuse box area. And then the longitudinal sensor will come down the trans tunnel area, follow that harness, and go across right over there. And then once that is done, the only things left for the SMG system are the hood pin, the hood switches. So I have there's right there, there's the driver's side, and then there's the green passenger side. There's two wires in each one of those. Each one has a brown ground wire. Let's see if we can come over here. So here we have the hood pin switch. This one goes all the way to the core support. Well, not all the way. The hood switches themselves have some extra wiring that hang off, and they plug into these. And each one of them has a brown ground wire. And this ground wire on the M3 was grounded to this grounding block right here, which you really can't modify. So they seal it with some kind of sealant. So there's a grounding bus in there for all these grounding wires, but to prevent rust and corrosion, they seal it, and so you can't really get into it. I had to cut the wire because it just mutilated the plug, the spade terminal plug, trying to get it out. Once I got all that coating off, it wasn't pretty, so I just cut it, and I'm going to ground it right here. It won't be pretty, but nobody will see it. And the same thing for the passenger side. So you have the ground wire, and then you have this red, white and red signal wire. And the signal wire just goes through here, and it goes to the body harness SMG connector. So that'll get routed through here and plugged through there. The one for the passenger side will go through that cavity area where the battery wire goes through. It's a little bit more complicated to get through that. So yeah, so that's where we're at. A lot of wiring, very tedious, trying to get that done. And so once I get that done, then it'll be moving on to the PDC wiring. And then once I get to the PDC wiring, once I get that done, then wiring the switch panel. And after the switch panel, because this car did not come with the switch panel, it's a very base model car, it just came with the DSC connector. So the switch panel has its own plug that gets wired to the fuse box. So I have all that wiring. And once that gets wired in, then I can start wiring the heated seats. So the heated seats will just get wired into the stock heat seat connector. There's three wires. There's a main power wire, there's a temperature sensor wire, and a ground. The power wire and the temperature sensor wire will go up through here, up the trans tunnel, and terminate there on both sides. And then the ground wire will kind of trail off of here, come down to this little grounding block right here. Oh yeah, so I have 3 more wires for the SMG stuff. They're kind of hanging right here. There's 2 ground wires, and these ground wires have little spade terminals because they go to a bus block, and those are going to get routed up through here into, there's another grounding block area right here. They're all over the car. You can grab them any. On the M3, you were able to ground it to the grounding block there. However, there was only 1 slot left on that one, and I used it for the speed selection switch. And that's okay, because there's plenty of wire to come and get routed all the way here, and there's 2 extra spots right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually 5 spots right there. And then that's good for me because I didn't want to grab it from here, because I need to make sure that there's at least 1 available here for the heated seats. So progress is good. So I will be back with more updates. All right, back again. Late night, wrapping up this SMG wiring, and I did like 90% last night, called it a night, and then tried to finish up tonight. The things I needed to finish up were adding the 2 ground wires to the bus bar, which I'll show you in a second. And then I had laid out the wires that were left over, which were wires that went from the SMG connector, which has been routed up to the firewall, goes up here in these little things right here, follows the factory harness pathway, it goes through here all the way around to the fuse box. And then there was 2 bundles of wires. One set of wires goes to the fuse box area, and the other set terminated into the longitudinal acceleration sensor, which I added down there. And it's routed and it's plugged in, so that will work. So the next thing I did was, here, let me go over here. Oh, look. I'll get to why this is out in a second. It's not fun in a small garage. All right, so here you have the fuse box, and this fuse box has 2 parts. You have your main fuse box, which is your main powered bus bar from the battery and the ignition, and then it powers everything else in the car. And the way the fuse box works is there's a bottom powered bar and a top bar, and a bottom powered bar that always has power. And then if there's no fuse, then it's missing a top leaflet, which are these the little connectors that the fuses go into. So the fuse has 2 prongs. The bottom prong connects to the always energized powered bar, depending on which accessory it is. And the top one, if it wasn't an option in that car, then there's no top wire. So if you put the fuse in, the fuse won't make any connection, so you got no power. So adding a couple wires from the SMG system, there was 4 wires coming from the SMG connector. 2 of them terminated into here. These are I can't remember the name, but this is another bus system. So this is a bundle of wires. You got like it's like a junction point. And so right here, all these, there's lots of different slots, and it's just a way for BMW to have a bunch of wires connect at one common point. It's very similar to the ground bus or the illumination bus. That's the illumination bus right there. So this one, you have, I don't know all the names of them, what they do, but like these blue and black wires, those are for reverse signal. these white, yellow, and red wires, that's the K bus. So anything that needs to communicate across the K bus, they all connect here so that they can have one communication point. You have another ground bus in here, this grounding right there. So I needed to add 2 wires, which are these 2 right here. I needed to add these to these 2 buses. Don't know what they are, don't really care, but that's where they were at. And there was 1 slot available on each one. The red and yellow bus and the all black wire bus. So I added my leaflets in here, and that completed that connection. And that goes to the SMG DME connector. I can go look at the pinout if I really want to see what these are for. So that takes care of these 2 wires. Then you had 2 other wires. You had this purple wire. It's got a stripe on it. I think it's purple and brown. And then you got this black wire with the blue stripe. So the purple wire was pretty simple. So it goes to the purple wire went to fuse 8, and the black and blue goes to fuse 22. And if you look at this guy, you'll see there's an M3 only one. Sequential transmission. Let me see if I can find it right here. Not sure if it'll... Anyways, we have sequential transmission only M3, 8 and 22. Right there, 8 and 22. So those 2 wires are specific to the SMG system. So number 8 was pretty easy. I just inserted 8, which is right here. This guy right here. There's 7 and 9, and then there's one right here in the middle, which is 8, and it has 8 right here inscribed. And this is the top connector. The bottom one is a powered bus bar already. So all I'm doing is adding this top wire, which goes to the SMG DME connector, so that when I put a fuse in, which I already have, that means now this wire is going to get a fused connection power signal from whatever that bus is energizing. So that was easy. But the other wire was this black and blue wire. I went to go add it in the top, but then I noticed when I looked at it from the front, there was no bottom leaflet, no terminal. So I would have put the fuse in and it would have connected here, but it would have not connected on the bottom. So I had no idea what that was. I had to go look at the M3 convertible harness, which is why I have that whole pile over there. So we'll go back over here. So we looked at this rat's nest, and here is part of the fuse box. So I went and found number 22, and I looked at it, and there was that black and blue wire was connected right about there. I've removed it now. I don't really care about this. I don't have the D-pin tool with me. I loaned it to a friend, so I had to use some pliers and break some of the plastic around it so I didn't damage the leaflet. I didn't want to yank it out. So I got that out. But there was a blue wire here. I had removed the blue wire that was already there on the top, but I didn't remove the bottom wire because I guess my brain just assumed the wagon would have had it. So my wagon didn't have it because it's not an SMG car. So I looked at this wire and I traced it all the way through the harness just to see where it went. And then I just started tugging at different things, and it turned out it ended up here. And I looked at this plug, and it's the EWS plug. So there was a wire going from pin 3 on the EWS connector that went to fuse 20, the bottom port of fuse 22 on the fuse box. So I just D-pinned this, removed that connector there, and then pulled the whole wire. And then I came over here, I added it to the fuse box, and I ran, you can actually see it right there. There's a black and blue wire. I have it running all the way up across behind the fuse box, running the same wire, the routing, all the way across. And it's right there, comes up in here, following through here. And then I had it terminate, and I just added it to the EWS box. So that connection is complete. And I went ahead and added my 2 ground wires to this bus connector here. I'm going to add this cover back to it, and then I'll tape it back up, and then I'll zip tie these out of the way and make everything nice and tidy. I'm completely out of zip ties, so I need to go buy some new cable ties so I can tidy up all this wiring, get it nice and snug and clean and out of the way. Then there's only 1 wire left for the SMG system, and that's this wire. So this is a 12 volt ignition 2 wire. On the M3, there was a junction point. So you can see here, if you pull this cap off, there was a junction point where there was wires that came in the body harness, and they originated from the DME box. There's a powered box, and they get the power from, what is it? This is the non-M DME cage. I'm just using it for fitment, but regardless of what, they all have the fuse right here. So this fused connection box right here, this supplies 12 volts to a lot of different areas of the car for the engine and transmission. So there's a bundle of wires, and on the M3, one of the wires from one of these slots ran through the body and terminated in the body harness in the car, which is why when I depinned it, it was right around here, I remember, around the trans tunnel. I was able to, where'd it go? I was able to remove this wire with this cap, and it was bundled with a whole bunch of other wires with a metal solder, sleeve. So I peeled that sleeve back and got the wire that I needed. So basically, but in this car, it's not here because it's wired differently. So that means I'm going to need to run a new wire. I'm going to add the wire here, run it through the DME connector, the firewall, and I'll wire it into the new junction point up there. So I'll find the proper point up there, and then once that gets 12 volts, that means that this will get 12 volts properly on ignition. Without this, this won't get power, and this has to get power. But once I add that power, then the SMG wiring will be done. Then I can move on to PDC and the heated seat stuff in the switch center. So lots going on, but it is progress. It's slow, but you just chip away at it little by little. I won't say day by day, because there's some days I'm not able to get what I need to get done, work-life balance. But my goal is to get this finished, I don't know, by January. I need this engine in by December. So obviously you'll see this video afterwards. And I'm trying to figure out if I want to do this in small bits, or if I want to save all these clips and put it together and just do one long video that shows the beginning to end of the build. I think that might be pretty cool. So we'll see. All right. So I will see you guys in the next one. All right, bye.